Hello everyone, and welcome to my YNR Daily Update channel. Does saving a life actually buy you a free pass for your crimes in Genoa City? Or is the Newman family's sense of debt always paid in corporate stock rather than human compassion? Well, think about it for a second because that is the million-dollar question hanging over everything today. Was Nick's ultimatum to Phyllis a calculated business move, or was it just a cold-blooded betrayal of the woman who literally pulled him back from the brink of death? Honestly, the whole vibe in town has shifted from a rescue mission to a straight-up firing squad, and the targets are clearer than they've ever been. We aren't just looking at a recap of what happened on Wednesday, June 3rd, we are dissecting the total collapse of Phyllis Summer's empire and the terrifying rise of a Newman regime that seems to have completely forgotten the meaning of mercy. This isn't just about who owns a building or a company anymore. It's about the psychological warfare that defines the upper crust of Wisconsin's elite, and it's getting really ugly, really fast. Let's talk about Nick Newman for a minute because his behavior toward Phyllis isn't just tough love anymore. It's a complete 180 in his personality. It really feels like he's finally soaking up that ruthless DNA from his father, Victor. Why did he do it? Well, why do the Newmans do anything? In their world, vulnerability is a liability, and by threatening Phyllis with prison right after she saved his life, Nick is trying to kill off the part of himself that feels like he owes her anything. It's a classic move. If you owe someone everything, the only way to feel powerful again is to take everything they have. Do you think he's being fair? Or is this just the mustache's influence finally taking over his son? I mean, Phyllis is facing the end of the road here. The woman who has clawed her way back from the ashes more times than we can count has finally hit a wall she can't climb over. We all saw it. That moment the light just went out in her eyes. Nick didn't just ask for Newman Enterprises back, he held the keys to her prison cell in one hand and the corporate merger papers in the other. The funny thing is, this is the ultimate game over for Phyllis because the weapon Nick is using against her is her own act of being a hero. He's basically saying that her saving his life doesn't cancel out the fact that she was aiding and abetting Matt Clark. That is a pretty wild way to look at morality, don't you think? Nick is putting the family legacy way above the individual who actually saved the family heir. He's betting that Phyllis's fear of a jail cell is way stronger than her greed for a company. And internally, Phyllis has to be feeling a level of betrayal that just crushes the soul. Imagine risking everything to save the father of your child, only to have him look you dead in the eye and threaten to call the Las Vegas PD on you. She isn't just losing a company today. She's losing her faith in the one Newman who usually had a shred of humanity left in him. This feels like the death of their partnership in every single way. Now, let's look at this from a different angle. For years, Phyllis has been the one setting the traps, right? But now, she's the one caught in a cage of her own making. By hiding Matt Clark, she gave the Newmans the one thing they needed to win, legal leverage. They didn't even need to be better at business than her, they just needed to find a way to outlegal her. And honestly, in my opinion, Nick is being a complete hypocrite here. How can you take a life-saving favor and then use the circumstances of that very favor to blackmail the person? It's dirty pool, even for a Newman. Sure, Phyllis shouldn't have been hiding a criminal like Matt, but Nick's timing? It proves he cares way more about getting the mustache's approval than he does about actual justice. Phyllis has this savior complex that usually protects her ego, and she probably thought that by saving Nick, she'd become untouchable. But when that failed, her whole safety net just vanished. That's why she's running to Michael Baldwin now, literally begging for mercy. She's desperate to find someone to protect her because her own heroism didn't buy her the immunity she was counting on. While Phyllis is spiraling out of control, Victor Newman is basically taking a victory lap before the race is even over. He's declaring victory and sitting in that CEO chair like he never left. But is he celebrating way too early? Victor thinks the mustache always wins, and let's be real, usually he's right. But his gloating feels different this time. It feels like he's ignoring the rot inside his own house just so he can focus on the gold on his office walls. He's so obsessed with reclaiming the empire from Phyllis that he's completely blind to the fact that his wife, Nikki, is literally falling apart right in front of him. It's a classic distraction technique. Conquer the world so you don't have to deal with the tragedy happening in your own living room. Victor's gloating is really just a mask for his deep-seated need for control. When Newman Enterprises was out of his hands, he felt weak. Now that he has it back, or thinks he does, he's overcompensating with all this bravado. He wants everyone, Phyllis, Nick, Jack, to know that he is the boss. It's not even about the money for him anymore, it's about the dominance he craves over everyone in Genoa City. We should probably look at Victor's victory as a desperate attempt to stay relevant. He's like an aging lion who just bit the head off a younger rival, but he's completely ignoring the hunters standing right behind him. The real threat isn't Phyllis anymore. It's the fallout from his own ruthless tactics. And honestly, I can't stand how Victor treats Michael Baldwin. Michael has been a loyal friend and a brilliant legal mind for years, and Victor treats him like he's just some disposable pawn. Watching Phyllis beg Michael to help her, knowing Victor has already threatened Michael's entire career, is just peak drama. Do you think Michael will actually help her? I hope he stands up to both of them and chooses his own integrity for once. Victor doesn't just want the company back, he wants Phyllis to suffer while he takes it. That's the scary part of his personality. He doesn't just need to win, he needs to destroy the person he's playing against. This is why he's pushing Nick to be just as cold as he is. He's molding Nick into his own image to make sure the Newman ego survives for another generation. But while the men are playing chess with skyscrapers, Nikki Newman is playing a much more dangerous game with her health. Her migraines are getting worse, and everything points to a medical catastrophe on the horizon. Nikki is refusing to see a doctor because she's obsessed with Nick's recovery and his addiction crisis. This is a textbook case of a caregiver burning out while being in total denial about their own life. She's using her son's problems as a shield so she doesn't have to face her own terrifying symptoms. Why would she do that? Well, because if she admits she's sick, she loses the only power she has left in the family, the role of the stable person everyone leans on. There is such a huge sense of isolation in Nikki right now. Victoria is the only one who's actually seeing her and grilling her with questions because she sees the cracks in the facade. Victoria's fear is real. She knows this isn't just MS. Nikki is internally terrified, feeling her body fail her, but she's trapped in a marriage where her husband is too busy winning business wars to notice her pain. Nikki's health crisis is like a ticking clock for the whole family. While they fight over who gets to sit in the big chair at the office, the chair at the head of the dinner table is about to be empty. It makes the whole corporate war look so petty and meaningless when you think about life and death. And Victor's ultimatum to Nikki? That she has to choose between him and her friendship with Jack Abbott if she wants to save their marriage? That is absolutely disgusting. To do that while your wife is suffering from blinding, possibly terminal headaches is just cruel. Jack has been Nikki's emotional rock lately, and Victor's jealousy is so toxic that he'd rather she suffer all alone than be comforted by his rival. It's not about Jack, really, it's about Victor's own deep insecurity. He knows he's failing Nikki emotionally, and instead of stepping up to be the husband she needs, he just tries to eliminate the competition. It's a classic move by someone who knows they are losing their grip on a relationship. Away from the ranch, the Winters family is having its own civil war, and it's getting intense. Lily is absolutely exploding at Devon, and honestly, can you blame her? Devon is acting like he's the self-appointed moral police of the whole city. He's warning Holden that he won't be a meal ticket and blasting Lily for her connection to Kane. Why is he being so hard on everyone? It's probably because he's terrified of being taken advantage of again. All that trauma from Dominic's kidnapping has turned him into the cynical gatekeeper who thinks everyone is just an opportunist. Lily is feeling completely suffocated by it. She's a grown woman who has been through absolute hell, and she finally found a little bit of happiness with Kane. To have her brother constantly poking and criticizing her choices feels like a total betrayal of their bond. She just wants support, not a lecture every time she walks into a room. The funny thing is, the Winters storyline is basically mirroring the Newmans but on a slightly smaller scale. Both families are obsessed with who is worthy of their legacy and their love. Devon's treatment of Holden is just Victor-like behavior. He's marking his territory and demanding loyalty before it's even been earned. I really think Devon needs to take a seat for a while. He has no right to call Holden an opportunist when the guy just found out who his family is. Lily is 100% right to lash out. Devon's protection is really just control disguised as concern, and it has to be exhausting to live with. He's projecting all his own fears of losing things onto Lily and Holden. Because he's afraid of being hurt or losing his status, he just assumes Holden is there for the money and Kane is there to ruin Lily. It's a perfect example of someone's internal instability being projected onto everyone around them. Now, what about Matt Clark? That whole situation with the Shadow Room recreation by Noah Newman was supposed to be a clean slate, but it has turned into a portal to a very dark past. Matt is breaking down, and the debate over what happens to him is splitting the Newman men right down the middle. The Shadow Room didn't just bring back memories, it brought back all the guilt that goes with them. Matt's breakdown is either the best acting job in the history of soaps, or he is actually having a total psychological collapse. Nick wants him punished or eliminated because he sees the monster Matt used to be. But Victor? Surprisingly, he's leaning toward giving him a second chance. Why the change of heart? Probably because Victor loves a redemption project that he can control. He doesn't want Matt to just get better, he wants Matt to be his personal project. Sienna Bacall is caught in a terrible spot emotionally. She hates Matt for what he did to her, but she's watching a man cry in real agony over his own soul. That has to trigger her compassion, but it also makes her feel like she's betraying herself. It's such a messy, painful place to be, pitying the very person who destroyed your life. I think the Shadow Room is a metaphor for the whole show, really. Everyone is trying to recreate the past or fix it, but all they're doing is triggering the same old trauma over and over. Noah's attempt to give Sienna a clean slate backfired because you can't build a new life on the floorboards of an old nightmare. I'm actually with Nick on this one, for the most part. Matt Clark is dangerous, and remorse doesn't change the fact that he's a criminal. But Victor wanting to treat him instead of punishing him? That's just Victor trying to play God again. Matt is going through what looks like an identity crisis. He remembers the evil things he did, but he says he doesn't feel like the person who did them anymore. He's desperate to wash it off, which is really a plea to be seen as someone new. But in Genoa City, your sins are like permanent tattoos. So, where do we go from here? Things are about to get much, much worse for everyone. I predict Phyllis is eventually going to cave and hand over Newman Enterprises because, honestly, what other choice does she have? But the second she does, Victor is going to move the goalposts again. He won't just want the company, he'll want her out of town for good. She's going to be left with nothing, no company, no Nick, and a legal target on her back because Christine Romolotti isn't going to let this go just because Victor says so. And then there's Nikki. She is going to collapse, and it's going to happen at the worst possible time. It'll probably be during a huge fight between Victor and Jack, and it's going to force Victor to realize his victory over Phyllis is totally hollow. If the leaks about a terminal diagnosis are true, the Newmans are about to face a kind of grief that no corporate merger can fix. Victoria will blame Victor for not listening to her, and the whole family is going to fracture. And don't think Matt Clark is going to prison. Victor is probably going to set him up in some kind of secret rehab facility, which is going to make Nick absolutely furious and lead to a permanent rift between them. This will give Matt the chance to either really redeem himself or, let's be honest, wait for the perfect moment to strike at the Newmans from the inside. Over with the Winters, Lily and Nate are both probably going to walk away from Devon. Nate will take that chief of staff job to be his own man, and Lily will likely take Chancellor and run it with Kane, cutting Devon out completely. Devon will be left with his money and his control, but he'll be sitting in an empty room because he pushed his whole family away. The final explosion is going to happen when Christine Romolotti goes rogue. Victor thinks he can just control the justice system like a light switch, but Christine's hatred for Phyllis is a literal force of nature. She's going to push for the maximum sentence no matter what Nick or Victor want. We are looking at a scenario where Phyllis Summers actually ends up behind bars, and the Newmans are the ones who put her there. That would destroy any hope of them ever making up for the next decade. What do you think about all this? Was Nick's ultimatum to Phyllis a justified move for his family, or was it a disgusting betrayal after she saved his life? Is there even a way back for them after this? And do you think Matt Clark is actually sorry for what he did, or is he just a master manipulator playing on Victor's ego to stay out of jail? Genoa City is like a house of cards right now, and the wind is starting to pick up. Between Nikki's health, Victor's massive ego, and Phyllis's desperation, something has to give. If you love diving deep into the drama of the young and the restless as much as I do, make sure you hit that subscribe button and give this video a like. It really helps the channel keep the updates coming. And definitely drop a comment below with your theories on Nikki's diagnosis. Do you think it's really terminal, or is there a miracle cure waiting around the corner? Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Could Christine Romalotti actually send Phyllis to prison? We should probably look at Victor's victory as a desperate attempt to stay relevant. He's like an aging lion who just bit the head off a younger rival, but he's completely ignoring the hunters standing right behind him. The real threat isn't Phyllis anymore. It's the fallout from his own ruthless tactics. And honestly, I can't stand how Victor treats Michael Baldwin. Michael has been a loyal friend and a brilliant legal mind for years, and Victor treats him like he's just some disposable pawn. Watching Phyllis beg Michael to help her, knowing Victor has already threatened Michael's entire career, is just peak drama. Do you think Michael will actually help her? I hope he stands up to both of them and chooses his own integrity for once. Victor doesn't just want the company back, he wants Phyllis to suffer while he takes it. That's the scary part of his personality. He doesn't just need to win, he needs to destroy the person he's playing against. This is why he's pushing Nick to be just as cold as he is. He's molding Nick into his own image to make sure the Newman ego survives for another generation. But while the man is playing chess with skyscrapers, Nikki Newman is playing a much more dangerous game with her health. Her migraines are getting worse, and everything points to a medical catastrophe on the horizon. Nikki is refusing to see a doctor because she's obsessed with Nick's recovery and his addiction crisis. This is a textbook case of a caregiver burning out while being in total denial about their own life. She's using her son's problems as a shield so she doesn't have to face her own terrifying symptoms. Why would she do that? Well, because if she admits she's sick, she loses the only power she has left in the family, the role of the stable person everyone leans on. There is such a huge sense of isolation in Nikki right now. Victoria is the only one who's actually seeing her and grilling her with questions because she sees the cracks in the facade. Victoria's fear is real. She knows this isn't just MS. Nikki is internally terrified, feeling her body fail her, but she's trapped in a marriage where her husband is too busy winning business wars to notice her pain.